Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. I am so excited to share with you a guest who has been on the show before, but she's written a new book. Tissa Richards is joining me. And if you remember from previous episodes, she has done so many great things, so many pivots in her career journey. And I can't wait for her to share some of those with you. So Tissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so good to be back. And congratulations, since I've been here, you had your new workbook come out too. So
yes.
It's
Crazy.
Like so much to talk about.
We've both been busy. So I'd love to have you give a bit of information about you, your background, your career, so that people learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a recovering tech founder. And, I say that because I always worry I'm going to wake up and start a new technology company. I think I'm over it. I think I'm good. My friends and family are good at, keeping me away from that. Because, when you raise money for that long, you kind of like lose your soul and you age a lot. And it's not, when it wasn't fun anymore, then I was like, okay, we're good. That's what I did. And, so I have a large patent portfolio and have raised a lot of money. And now I only do really fun work with really great people. So it's nice to be at a place where you're like, that's what I'm choosing. But yes, I work with fast growth companies and really large, global Fortune 500 companies and leadership teams to really help them see the ROI of shifting from sort of that old kind of resilience where you're bouncing back and reacting to building it more like a proactive muscle so that you're always steady and ready to handle whatever's coming your way, both challenges and opportunities. So it's a lot of fun. Do a lot of keynotes, coaching, workshops, and just love every day, which is not something I could have said before. So let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you found the good side of things now compared to where you were.
Yeah.
Let's just talk a little bit about introducing the books. So your first book was No Permission Needed, which we talked about on the last show and has done wonderful things, right? You've won awards.
Yeah.
You've done all kinds of things with that. And the new book is called Rethinking Resilience, Fueling Your Competitive Advantage. Oh, love it. She's got it ready for the video. Is video ready?
It was by accident. It happened to be right next to me.
Yeah. Oh, it's so amazing. So let's talk about why this book. Why did you feel like it was needed?
Yeah.
And how is it different than any other book on resilience?
Yeah. When you think about it, like look at the book Grit, right? Which is a great book.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a lot about like pushing through and just kind of gritting your teeth and bearing it. And just, I think about the dictionary definition of resilience, right? It's you go through something difficult, you adapt, and then eventually you bounce back to normal life or business as usual. And I just feel like that definition doesn't serve us for the world that we live in and for the kind of leaders, but also just humans I think we need to be at this point. I think we need more readiness, more steadiness, and more ability to recognize that we're not rubber balls that bounce back. That definition makes us feel, I think, a little bit broken and a little bit like we're failing at resilience because so many people say to me, I didn't feel like I bounced back. And what am I bouncing back to? Sometimes that version of you doesn't exist. Sometimes the version of that world doesn't exist. That company doesn't exist anymore. And so I felt like it just wasn't serving us anymore. And I wanted to think of a way to think about it that prepares us more for the world that we live in and the people we need to be, which is looking forward and being ready, not just for challenges, but opportunities and innovation. So I just thought it was time to overhaul it. And I don't know, I'm a redhead. We're okay with just saying like, you know what? We're just going to challenge the whole thing. So
yeah. Change it up. Yeah, let's make it different. Let's step back just for a moment in time. We're not going to stay there because I know it can be challenging to stay there. When you were CEO of your cybersecurity company, things were not going as well as you had hoped. Can you share a little bit about that experience for you when you were having those feelings of, I am failing at resilience?
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, I appreciate the like the care of not wanting to sort of sit in that moment. But, I deliver the keynote that goes along with this book 3-4 times a week. So I spend a lot of time living in that moment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always easy to share. I mean, I talk about this in the keynote, but, I used to burst into tears a lot about it because it was very raw and very hard.
Yeah.
I think most memorably was when I was on a first date and the guy asked, what do you do for a living? And I just started sobbing. And so that's a really good way, by the way, not to get a second date. Just, I know you were, I know on your list of questions wasn't like dating advice from Tissa, but
exactly right.
That is free dating advice. Like you don't want to get a second date. Don't cry on the first date. But it is a lot easier to talk about it now because it's so much about the work I do. I had to make a decision to shut down the company to stay very aligned with my values. And it was awful. I mean, I lost everything. I lost my life savings. I lost my company. I lost family members. I lost friends. I lost my whole identity. And I'm literally curled up in a little ball in the fetal position under my desk thinking, okay, well, surely somebody will mail me my little badge of resilience now because this is what right? Like along, I'm literally pointing to my mailbox out in the driveway, but along with the legal letters and the bills that are coming in the mail, there should be a little cool badge that I can put on my sweater. And it never came. And I just kept thinking well, did I miss something? Isn't this what's in the dictionary? And then I also think, I know you've read the book. So, I also talk about this idea of things happening to you versus things happening through you that you choose. And then I started realizing, okay, I don't think anything happened to me. I'm going to choose what happens through me and how I move forward here. Growth, insight, adaptability, everything is going to be intentionally through me. And so that's when I thought, I'm not going to fail at this. My company didn't fail. I chose to shut this down. Failure and defeat, unless you learn from them, it's not defeat. You can choose to fail or shut something down and move forward. So I just thought it's time to just totally rethink this and grow from it. And so I think even talking about it isn't hard because it turned it into a crucible of learning and growth, Yeah,
it was a pivotal moment for you. I mean, it led to so many great things coming out of that, although not fun in that moment, right? But I think it's helped all the people that you're working with now as clients. And you've had a lot of life lessons that came out of that I think have served you well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I remember we talked about this last time too, and it might have been after the show. I don't recall, but if you don't choose to learn from something, then it becomes a defeatist moment. But yeah, if you look at it and you go, this is what this is going to teach me, then it becomes an amazing learning opportunity.
You say something a lot, and I think it's a really good question to ask. What if everything you've been told about resilience was wrong? What was the moment for you that thought, I need to think about it differently and help others think about it differently?
I think it's got to be a little bit controversial to get people to really think differently about something. But I do think that everything we have been told about resilience is wrong. Grit, persevere, muscle through, bounce back. Because when you really think about it, I don't think that serves us in the world that we live in. It's so much about survival mode, right? Don't think about it until you need to bounce back. You're good, right? But when you really think about that, what I think happens, I always think about it like wavelengths, right? So things are good, you're up here. Things are bad, you're down here. Well, that can be a really big difference, like dips and valleys, highs and lows. I don't think we should live in survival mode. What if we could make that band a little bit smaller so you have more steadiness? And so that also means, just think from even just a pure physiological perspective, there's not as much adrenaline and cortisol coursing through you. You're not in reactive mode. So now you're not bouncing back because we don't want to go back. We want to move forward. We want to do it with intention, not reaction. So what if we could build it as a muscle instead so that you're not just steadier, you're ready. You have readiness for anything, not just bad things, but also challenges. But what about opportunities? Because the traditional definition of resilience does not take into account opportunities, innovation. So I just think it is so broken on so many levels that now we have a much smaller bandwidth of that kind of rocking, right? So you're more unshakable, but you're also more ready to go in and grab an opportunity, convert it. And that is a huge competitive advantage. You can innovate at the same time that you're dealing with challenges. I just think it's a more forward-looking way of being ready for anything.
Yeah. I mean, I would think with every CEO, every leadership team in any company is constantly going through a lot of challenges, unexpected ones, of course, and even things that they are preparing for that may be more challenging, mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, those types of things. I think what you're providing is a tool for them to be able to leverage and recognize that they can make it through this. No matter what comes up, they have a way to get through this.
I think so, right? That's the goal, right? Is so that people aren't as burned out, they're not as drained, and they're not in reactive mode. Because reactive mode is just, it's exhausting. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you see this with the clients you work with too, right? Being burned out, it's not a formula for success, right?
And they get stuck there, right? They get stuck in that broken, I can't do this. There's no way out. I don't know how to deal with it. And that's what I love about all the things that you're offering here. I love that you talk about it, is seeing it as a strategic advantage. And I also don't think people think about it that way either. So say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think resilience is sort of seen as, it's that survival thing. It's like, oh, are you burning out? Okay, just go bounce back, go find some resilience. You can cope. It's a coping mechanism, not a forward thinking strategic advantage. You remember the story in the book of the ice packs, right? But the company actually made me samples. So for 20 years, I've received a refrigerated medication shipment every 3 weeks for a medical condition I have. And so that's a lot of ice packs that you have to throw out. And about a year ago, I noticed that they had writing on them that said, don't throw out, just dilute and feed to your plants. And I was like, wait, I was just blown away. I just thought, well, when did ice packs become fertilizer? And I looked, and then occasionally I would get one that said, I'm just compostable. And then they started to say, now I'm drain safe. You can just, if you don't want to feed me to your plants, you can just pour me down the drain, or totally compostable. Now they don't even have to be diluted, because who wants to dilute them, right?
Yeah.
And it was so remarkable to me that I actually reached out and got a hold of the CEO of the company, Pelton Shepherd. His name is Tim Shepherd. It's a 50-year-old family-owned company. And he said, here's the thing, like usually innovation is like this reaction to a negative external pressure, right? Like regulators demand you do something, or competitors are doing something, or economic pressures making you make a change. He said, and we just decided our company values are do the right thing for the planet and for customers. And so we thought, let's add these to our product catalog and see what happens. And then they keep iterating. And that's why they have new ones that I'm constantly getting. And it's such a huge competitive advantage, because now let's say that the market does shift and regulators say you have to be more environmentally friendly. Their employees know that they're living their values, right? It's not just on the wall. Customers are totally delighted. Everywhere I speak now, I throw them out in the audience. People are delighted. I literally throw these ice packs in the audience. But I mean, I've been talking and writing about it. So they intentionally innovated way ahead of the curve. They didn't need to do this.
Right.
And so they asked what's possible instead of like, what do we have to do? And I think this is a really great example of this, because they were curious instead of reacting. So they didn't say like, it's not what happens to you. In this case, it's what happens through this company.
Right.
And so many cool things. And this is an example to me of like what you can do from a competitive advantage when you are intentionally resilient. You're curious, you innovate, you're not in reactive mode, and you don't need to be.
I think it also speaks to, the newer generations want a company that is purposeful, has a good mission, and they really want to feel proud of who they're working for. So that would be a great example of some company that people would want to work for and see that they're trying to do the right thing for the planet, for example. I love that story. When I read it, I was like, oh my gosh. I love that you're sending them out to people in the audience.
And here's another really cool thing about Pelton Shepherd. When I called them, they immediately hopped on the phone for an interview, because I was really close to actually finishing the book when I got the first one. And they were so delightful. And then when I said, like, I want to also include you in my keynote, he said, well, why don't we make you some cotton-filled samples so that you can travel with them? And just a remarkable company. And so I always say to people in the first couple of rows, I'm going to throw something at you. And they're like, is it going to hurt? I said, no. And I have literally thrown these ice packs at hundreds of people now. And it always gets this really interesting kind of gasp from the audience when I say, like, these you don't have to throw out. Because I think we are really intrigued by intentional innovation like that, where you mean they didn't have to do this? Like, they're just, to your point, they're doing the right thing.
Right.
It's
crazy. Oh my gosh. I love it so much. Well, I think we've talked about this, but I just want to see if there's anything you want to add. There's a nice little chart in your book around reactive resilience versus intentional resilience. Can you maybe just give a couple quick examples for people just so they understand the real definition? Of course, one is reactive, one is proactive, but is there any kind of examples that you can share?
Yeah. I mean, I think just like at its very, very base, one is just this idea of bouncing back. Why did this happen to me? It's a crisis. And the other is really moving it to, I don't need to bounce back. I'm going to look forward. I'm not going to go into crisis mode because I have the tools I need to be able to handle anything. And, sometimes people will say, well, what about the really big things? What if a hurricane strikes? What if God forbid, you get sick? Totally. This is not like a Pollyanna naive approach that like life is going to be amazing. What it does though, is it says that if you build a muscle and you know your values, you know how you're going to handle things, you know how you're going to make decisions, you know how you're going to have hard conversations, you know how you're going to communicate, sort of this whole kind of approach to things, to life, to leadership, to hard decisions, to just the hard stuff. It means you need less and less effort as the stakes get higher, so that when things do go awry, it's less pressure on you. It's less effort. You have the muscle memory to call on it. And so, yeah, a hurricane, a natural disaster, a crisis in your family, that is still going to be terrible. But you have a muscle memory to call on. And I think that that's a really important thing, because otherwise remember that bandwidth of how those waves are going to go. I know exactly what I'm going to call on to make this decision. I know who I'm going to call on. I think that's another thing, right? You have your community. You just know how you're going to respond and not react.
I also think about it builds confidence and also trust in themselves that they will know what to do no matter what comes their way, right? I think you can't always predict these things, but I don't know. You'd never want to have a leader who's like, I don't know what to do. What do you guys think? I don't know. Yeah. And I think you just want somebody who is that steady person who has some sort of plan, even if it's just the next step to take. It doesn't have to be the full thing, but it is allowing people to trust in that and know at the end of the day, it will actually turn out okay.
Yeah. And you said something interesting. I had a mentor when I was a baby CEO, and he said, a good leader, you don't have to know the answers, but you can also, that's also important to communicate, right? But to say, okay, steady hand on the helm. You don't want a leader running around with hair on fire going, I'm panicking too, right? But I also think of this as like, this is why we wear a seatbelt. We're not anticipating a car crash, but this way you're ready. It's why you take life jackets on a boat, even if it's a beautiful day. It's too late to grab for resilience when you're going to need it. And so I think building this kind of muscle memory as a leader, as a team, as a whole organization, this is 100% a competitive advantage, because you also don't even know what kinds of questions to ask. It's not just why me or why us or why did this happen, but okay, what could we do with this? What opportunities does this open up? Who do we need to bring in? You're just building this calm muscle memory that everyone can tap into. You got to do it now when the stakes are low, because when hair is on fire, it's too late.
Let's talk about a couple of different things that you have in the book around habits. So you have habits that you call reflect, repeat, and replace. So how can people start to understand what those are from your perspective and start doing them?
Yeah, so this is like a framework that I use. It's actually what I talk about in the keynote that I do as well, because I think we got to make things very practical, right? I mean, this sounds like it's a great idea. Okay, sure, I'll be intentionally resilient. How do I do it? So I think you want to reflect on what's important. So again, before you need it. So keep that life jacket with you before a storm hits. You can reflect on a lot of things. I think values are really important. So you want to reflect on what is most important before you need to grab for it. And I'll just give you like a really basic example to make it very tangible. But when I was, a baby CEO, certain situations would make me uncomfortable and I didn't know how to articulate why. And it's not very credibility building. Like some situations would be like when people were yelling and screaming at my team, like partners or investors. And it's not very professional to be like, this just makes me feel icky. It just was not great as a young female CEO. So I did a little work and realized, okay, my values are respect, transparency, and integrity. And here's why. And here's how they manifest. And so respect, for example, I believe everyone deserves a workplace where it's calm, they can do their best work, they're treated the best, because that gives them like a platform where they can do their best work. So that's the why, that's the what. And then the how it manifests is a very calm workplace. So now if I was in a situation, now I could recognize why that made me feel kind of icky. Like if I had a partner that came in and he and his team, and they loved to just yell and scream. But now I can put my finger on it and say, okay, this situation is violating one of my core values, which is this. Here's why that's a value. So we're going to take a pause until everybody comes back and calms down. Well, suddenly that just boosts up my credibility, because I'm not just saying, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I could ground it in this really kind of elevated leadership context, and everybody respected that. And so that was a reflection that I had to do. Then the repeat is how do you take your values or anything that's important to you and you build it into muscle memory? You do it through repetition. And I like to think of that as little, just micro moments, right? It's not huge things, just tiny. So you repeat it. I would literally say to people, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to make this into our way of working, our way of being. So repeat is how do you build a muscle memory? And then replace is literally, how are you going to replace an older way of working or replace reactive resilience, whatever it is? What are you going to replace with what you want it to be so that it just becomes part of who you are? So it's just a very easy way of breaking down maybe older ways of working or things that you don't want to do with a way that's going to make you far more effective, more successful, just better headspace. And it works in so many different levels, how you communicate, how you think, how you work. But yeah, that's what reflect, repeat, replace is.
And it's easy to remember, 3 R's.
Exactly.
Right.
It's just 3 R's. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the concept of the micro moments, because it's the little things you do every day, right? To instill those habits in yourself and to start thinking differently and start acting differently. And it's not a big shift. And I think everybody has that myth in their head that it's something bigger than it really is.
Yeah, 100%, Susan, right? And I think that's why I actually put it into the book, because imagine if you and I or anybody was like, okay, this whole company, we have to shift this culture to a intentional, I think you get a lot of like almost heartburn or angst of like, how do I change this? Or even, it's the same even if you wanted to change how you eat or change your exercise or anything, right?
Yeah.
But anybody can do one tiny thing. This is how you build habits. It's so much easier if you just break it down into something really small. And these are tiny. This is something even as small as like when you get an email or a text, instead of going to respond to it, you're going to come back to this in 5 minutes. That's it. I'm not even going to open it. I'm just going to come back to it. And suddenly you've given yourself some distance from it so that you're not reacting. Now you're actually giving it a more professional, calm response. There's a million ways to think about micro moments, but in all cases, you're giving yourself more headspace, more, I know I keep coming back to muscle memory, but that's what it is. You're building this calmness and this readiness into yourself, and it's really effective.
Yeah. And I don't think leaders give themselves enough time and space in general just to reflect and think about things. And so if they can incorporate something like that, even if it's for 5 minutes, it's more than they've probably taken before. So it's a win.
Yeah. Because there's so much false urgency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We live in this like heightened urgency, and it's not good for us.
Everything's now, right? Okay. Let's talk about your resistance flywheel.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there are 7 dimensions to that. And they all start with C. I love that she's good at alliteration, everyone.
Yeah. So when I was putting the book together, one of the things I really thought was, how do we make this very crunchy for leaders so that they could go and just say, oh, again, micro moments, like this is an easy thing to start bringing to my team. And I interviewed such remarkable people who had such great stories and examples, and patterns really emerged with all the teams I've worked with. And so, some of the elements are things like just communication. How do you communicate in a way that is so straightforward that reduces uncertainty, for example? So communication is a big one. Just creating a good, a cadence of communication for people. And that's even saying, here's what we know, here's what we don't know. Because sometimes we don't know, and that's okay to say. Clarity is another one, right? So just having clarity on, your values, alignment. So many times I'll do this exercise with companies and I'll go and listen and they'll go, it's like the big kickoff of the year and they'll go, these are our priorities. And the leaders will get off the stage and then I'll ask people, okay, well, what are the top 3 priorities? And I hear 20 things from people. And I think, oh no, we're not going to reach our goals.
Yeah.
And then the leaders are really surprised because they're like, well, we clearly said these are the top 5. And I go, well, you clearly thought that. They heard 20. And so clarity is really key. Conviction, having conviction on what you're doing and why, that helps you not second guess yourself. Community. So resilience is a team sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't do this on your own. And as a leader, that also means empower your team, have other people lead your meetings, things like that. That's how you're going to push things out to the edges so that you're not the only person carrying this load. Cadence is a big one. We just talked about this. Like everything is not urgent all the time.
Right.
Well, it feels it.
Yes.
But how do you actually give things the right speed and pace so that you don't burn out and learn to be comfortable doing it? I know there's other ones in there.
Is it capability? Is that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So this is very much about actually like giving people the skills they need. So, this is helping people not conflate defeat with failure and modeling resilience for people, pushing them out of their comfort zone so they're comfortable. It's the nice thing about the reason I did it as a flywheel, though, is you don't have to start one place and be like, oh, we got to get this all right. You can do little micro moments of all of these just depending on where your team is at any given time. And you don't have to eat the whole elephant at once,
Yeah.
I kind of hate that saying, but yeah.
So if we think about you going into a company who wants to start doing more intentional resilience with their leadership team, for example, what are the things that you tell them? Like, of course, you're explaining what you just explained to us on the flywheel and the habits and all of those great things. Do you give them a place to start?
A lot of times instead we'll do an assessment, like let's look at the flywheel and where do you think you're really strong? Where do you think you might need the most work? What I love about I talk with my hands a lot. What I like about the concept of a flywheel is it creates its own movement, right? No one of those is any more important than the other. And I've had teams say, I think we're really great at cadence. I think we're really good at figuring out when to go fast, when to go slow, but I think we could brush up on our communication. And so I wouldn't want to come in and say, we've got to start with cadence because you've got to get a good sense of the baseline of where things are. Something we also really do is look at like, where are things noisy? What's in your control? What can you influence? So we just help take the noise level down first because that's really important. Let's just get the noise down so we can actually get a good baseline. A lot of it is self-reflection.
Yeah. I love the idea of an assessment because you don't know walking into a company. And of course, everyone has their own perception of what's going well and what isn't going well. And they can't always see the reality as much as you can. Coming in with kind of fresh eyes, right? I have a new perspective. I'm looking at your company. I'm looking at your people. And here's where I see the issues. But I think an assessment's a good way to do that.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Helps.
And what's your goals, right? So like some teams are really anxious about, well, I shouldn't say anxious, but some teams are really, a priority is very much about innovation. But for some, it's like, hey, we're in catch-up mode. So, we've got to get everybody back up to baseline. So I think a one size fits all is not necessarily the most effective.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples where you have implemented this and what have the shifts been or what have they said once they started to really adopt it?
Yeah, definitely. So I've worked with a couple of large companies where, especially, I'm sure you've seen this too, right? Where people are very geographically dispersed. There's all this argument about return to office and things, but the reality is there's still a lot of people that are not all in one place sitting around a water cooler.
Yeah.
And so I think just getting people back in one place when we do this and sort of seeing like, oh, I really thought that our biggest friction point was X. And now I realize that all we needed to do was name it, put it in this bucket, and realize that we actually have a lot more control over that than I thought. Or that I I can't control that, but you can. So you and I just need to sync up a little. I think it's just that we're all so busy. We don't take the time to just name things, put them in the right bubbles, and communicate about them. So we communicate more than we ever have. Slack, Teams, but are we really actually communicating in the right effectiveness? So what I see this doing a lot is unblocking things. Just quickly name it, unblock it, off we go. And so that has been the biggest shift for a lot of people, I think, is like, oh, I thought that was a big problem, but it's actually not. Or I never realized that we could actually shift that from one bucket of noise to control. It's bringing it up to a conscious level, things that people I think had just thought was just going to always be a friction point, and it's not. And I know you see this a lot too, right?
Yeah, it's for sure. I just think sometimes people accept the way things are instead of even exploring the idea of what if we could change it? What if we could do something different? What would that do for us, right? Just like the company with the ice packs, right? What if we could create something that's compostable, So I think there's a lot of opportunities that just because things are the way they are doesn't mean they have to stay that way.
Absolutely. And you're right. I think just sometimes we've just done things a certain way for so long that it just takes someone coming from the outside to go, well, is that really out of your control? I had one company say to me once, and I thought, uh-oh. They said, we don't have a process for curiosity, so that's not going to be part of it. And I thought, okay, well, this is probably why we've had so much friction. You don't need a process for it. Just, it's a question. I'm not usually speechless, but I thought, do we need to have literally like a whole work stream for curiosity? Isn't curiosity just a question like, what is possible? How do we do it? But I was truly speechless that because there wasn't an official, I don't know, head of curiosity, it didn't exist in the company. But I guess it shows you that like for a while, if it hasn't been embodied or encoded, after a while, it just goes away.
Or there isn't like a specific structure or framework or something to follow, a template to follow.
There's no form for curiosity, so we can't be curious. And I think they could tell on the meeting because they were like, is that a bad thing? I said, well, it's not a great thing. I mean, let's be honest. Like, I said, how do you innovate? And she said, well, we don't really. There's too much change right now to innovate. And I just thought, okay, I said, well, that's actually where we're going to start. Yeah. I think we did the assessment really fast right now.
We found the biggest problem and challenge, right? Oh my gosh. So has anything changed for you, since your first book to this book? Has anything changed for you now that you've kind of been on this journey?
Yeah, actually, I am doing far more speaking to really large audiences. And I think part of it is just a natural maturation of, my work and my practice. But also I think it's just a way to reach more people. And and now I can throw ice packs at more people. I mean, let's be real, right?
It's a win for sure.
It's a win. But yes, that's where I've really spent a lot of time. So really large keynotes to, conferences, sales kickoffs, leadership offsites, things like that.
Yeah.
So that a lot of times followed by a workshop or sort of an activation exercise with the participants. And then still, some coaching and some work with the ELT. Yeah.
So I think last time we met, you were getting ready to do a TED Talk that was unexpected.
I did. That's right. We did a TEDx talk for Austin with 30 days total from the time and which was actually really, really fun.
Yeah, that was impressive for sure. Because I know that takes a lot of work to pull that together.
Glad that's all the time there was. Because, I feel like what is it called? I can't remember the name of this principle, but it says that work expands to take up the time allotted. And so, it was a wild 30 days, but I think if it had been, I think a lot of people have a year or 10 months, then I would have angsted about it for 10 months. This way it was like 30 days of chaos and then it was done.
Then it's done. All good. Oh, good. Yeah. Excellent. Well, is there anything else you want to add that I didn't ask you about or anything else you want to share about what you're doing?
No, but I think I said no. And then yes, actually, I think that one of the other benefits to this approach is that it helps you turn pressure into power. And what I mean by that is like, so often we think about how much pressure we're under, right? By the end of the day, you have so many decisions, there's so much. And imagine if you could just turn that into into power, which you can, because when you have this kind of clarity, when you are unshakable, when you know that you are ready and steady, now you've turned what a lot of people find stressful and something that can burn you out into your greatest competitive advantage. You have power if you know you're making amazing high stakes decisions with so much confidence and clarity. I see it so often with the people I work with and the leaders I work with. And now that becomes a huge thing. What was pressure is now power. And I just see it and I think, I wish more people could just have that and have that, like, you could breathe out. And it's just a really beautiful thing.
Just more calm and composed, and just knowing that you can tackle whatever comes at you and you don't have to live in chaos. And for people in most companies, well, at least a lot of the ones I'm talking to, it's like, it's chaotic. It's crazy. It's busy. It's intense. And I think that becomes okay when it's just like a blip on the radar you talked about, right?
Sure.
But when it is constant and you never see a light at the end of the tunnel, it just makes it really hard to live in that space. And I think it's just hard on our bodies, right? That's too much stress. So it's crazy.
We're not designed to do that for an extended period of time. And so it's kind of like, wouldn't it be nice to get out of reactive mode and into totally like just ready, steady, in control? Now you have the power. You're at the controls. So yeah, I think that's sort of the like, why would I want this? Because you don't have to be in reactive mode ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would hope people would see the benefit of that in no time at all.
Yeah. It's a nice place to be.
Yeah. 100%. All right. So we're going to transition into the 4 questions that I ask every guest at the end of the show.
The ones that I forgot from the last time. So these are,
let's see what her answers
it's
are.
like
if
Finding
they're different.
Nemo. I can't remember. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see what her answers are here.
Yes.
Okay. The first one, what is visibility and why did you answer that way?
I bet this is going to be different from the last time. I think visibility is having people in your life, in your world, that see you and know you and can be there for you personally, but also will say your name in rooms that you're not in. And they're out there just advocating for you. So it's not mentorship. It's like sponsorship. They're saying your name.
Yeah, I love that. And they see your value, right? And they can talk about it to other people. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Second question. What are you doing to be visible?
What am I doing to be visible? I'm just saying what I believe, even if it's not the status quo, you know? Yeah. I don't really, I had somebody who, we actually shared a car back to the hotel after our conference. And the first thing she said to me was, I don't like your definition of resilience. And I thought, wow, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just thought, well, okay. So what am I doing to be visible is I'm just saying my truth, because I believe it. And I believe that it's going to help people. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. You're speaking with conviction about what you care about and what you think is important. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. She's probably an outlier. We're not going to worry about her.
Yeah. It didn't ruin my day. I was
going to say, good. Yeah. Okay. What is the best leadership or career advice you've received?
The best leadership or recruiter advice. It was not to turn down an introduction from somebody you really, really respect, as long as it has a meaning or an explanation attached to it.
Can you say more about that? I'm just curious what that means.
Yeah. So, you don't want to just have a hat. Like, sometimes I think people will just do an intro just because they want to get back in your inbox or something. And if you're, when you're busy or traveling a lot, it's like, oh God. But, if somebody does an introduction and explains why, I think you two should meet because XYZ, don't turn it down. You never know years later where something might go. And so when you really respect somebody and you know that they know you, there's visibility, don't turn it down, because those relationships take a little while to nurture, but they did it for a reason. So take them up on it.
Sometimes they can see stuff that we can't see, right? Because they know both sides. And
Totally.
Yeah.
But that can be a little hard when you're really busy and you have a huge network. So it works both ways. Be really respectful. But don't turn down an intro, especially when you're earlier in your career,
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Networking is important always. For sure.
Very, very important. Yeah.
Okay. Last question is, what is a book you would recommend? Now I know yours, mine. Let's put
yes.
those on the list, of course.
Totally.
But let's hear about another book that you're reading.
Yeah. A book I just finished reading was Anti-Fragile, which
mm-hmm.
was interesting because I was doing some work kind of around my space, and it was really interesting. It's a little scientific, can be a little heavy, but I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Okay. Excellent. Well, how can people reach out to you, talk to you, learn more about your book, and buy a copy?
Yes. So I did record the Audible. So if you like my voice and you like the book, it's on Audible. It's on Amazon, and I'm pretty sure it's on other book platforms as well. And then there is my URL and LinkedIn. So I do very active on LinkedIn, and you can reach out and book a keynote or workshops, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, definitely follow her. She has some brilliance that she's sharing all the time. And
no pressure, Susan. Thank you.
I'm sure you don't have to do it every day. Let's just say once a week. How about that?
There's lots of brilliance. Okay.
But I know you're putting out a lot of podcasts and you're speaking a lot because of the book and all of that. So if you want to hear more information about that, for sure. And check out her first book. I think it was really great too. And it's a different focus, right? But I think it's also important for people who are leaders to know that they don't need permission.
Yep. And I'm already working on the third. So
look at you. Excellent. Yeah. Are you able to share yet? Or is that still a secret?
Not quite. But we'll be back and we'll chat about the third for sure. That'll be fun.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I already have a list of ideas for mine next one too. So yeah, we'll just keep this going.
Totally.
We'll just keep going at the same pace. Maybe that'll work out for both of us.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for what you're doing in the world. I think it's great. I love this approach. And I think so many companies and leaders are going to benefit from it. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. So good to see you.
Thanks, everybody, for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.